Chapman spent considerable time in financial services and the telecom industry, where he achieved extraordinary success climbing the corporate ladder. After reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, he realized he would need to have a backup plan should anything happen to his full-time career. He began buying single-family residences and duplexes 2 years ago, and is now transitioning into multifamily real estate syndications. Find out his reason for transitioning into syndications and what he believes to be the biggest obstacle holding people back from achieving their dreams. All right, welcome back to another episode. We have Sterling Chapman joining us here from Louisiana. Sterling, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dion. Appreciate you having me.
Glad to have you on here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you transitioned to where you are currently with real estate?
Okay, so you want my background before real estate?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm from, like you said, South Louisiana. I went to LSU and got a degree in finance and spent a few years in the financial service industry, which basically just means I sold insurance and set up retirement accounts. And it was just in my early 20s, I was irresponsible. It was hard to manage 100% commission, and it was up and down. So in my mid 20s, I transitioned to telecom, and I started working for a top telecom provider, and really just kind of shot up the corporate ladder. It was around the time I was like 28. So, and that was really when I got into a lot of like personal development and self-improvement type of stuff. And I just kind of used that to make my career shoot up, and went back and got an MBA with concentration in finance from LSU as well. And during my MBA studies that I finished in 2017, I really was intrigued by the business, and I really liked entrepreneurship. And I took an entrepreneurship class, and I said, man, I'd love to go out and do something on my own, but I didn't really have any skill sets. I didn't know exactly what that was going to be. I have a lot of experience in the telecom industry, but telecom's difficult. I mean, it's a technology industry, and I'm not a technology guy, so I just didn't have the wherewithal to go out and start a tech company. You can't start a telephone company these days. So, as I moved up the corporate ladder and started making more and more money, my dad advised me to figure out something smart to do with it, or it would all just disappear. So I started reading personal finance books, and when I got to Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was like, oh man, my mind's blown. I'm looking at everything wrong, and that's when I started diving into studying real estate, and that was in February of 2018. And then I studied real estate for 6 months. I mean, I read every book there was. I listened to every Bigger Pockets episode and a bunch of other audiobooks and podcasts, and finally bought my first single family rental in the summer of 2018. The next month I turned around and bought another one. And then I went and borrowed some money and bought some beat up duplexes and cash out refinance. And then I met some other gentlemen through networking and did some seller financing deals. So over the course of the last year and a half, I've built up I think I just bought my 28th unit. So I have 28 units that cash flow around $7,000 a month. And, initially my whole reason to get into real estate was to provide a safety net should something happen to my corporate job. But, since then I've really found it, to be so much more than that, and really interested in turning it into so much more than that. I still have my W-2 job. It's a great job, and I make, a decent living doing it. I've, actually today I'm turning, because for the last year and a half, I've managed all those properties myself with a full-time W-2 job, with an 8-month-old baby, with a podcast. And it's just been a real time constraint. And so today I don't know when you release this, but we're recording on April 17th. I'm turning the property management of 18 of those units over to somebody else. So I'm super excited about that. I was telling somebody this morning, I feel like I just bought a shiny new car. So the idea of putting those headaches on somebody else and just getting my time back is really exciting to me. And with that time, I want to kind of pursue what I started to get interested in over the last 6 months, which is syndicating large apartment complexes.
Yes.
So
So you just mentioned that you got, in the last 6 months, you kind of redirected your attention to syndication. So how'd that come about?
I read Joe Fairless's book on I think it's the best ever syndication book, and I really enjoyed that. It was a really great kind of how-to manual. It talked about setting up a thought leadership platform and all of the benefits of that, and that's where I created my podcast, the Rent Roll Radio Show. And it's been everything that he kind of described it would be in the book. So it's had a lot of people come to me and want to invest with me. It has forced me to continue to network on a weekly basis. It's forced me to continue to educate myself on a weekly basis. And I've just been, really lucky with kind of how it took off and with the guest list. And I've just had the opportunity to interview some really smart guys that are just knocking it out of the park. In a majority of the people I interview are in multifamily. It's not specifically a multifamily podcast. It's just a buy and hold real estate investing podcast. But once you kind of get in with that network, everybody they know is another multifamily syndicator. So a lot of the guests on the shows have been that. And I just for scalability and for diversification. So I'm in South Louisiana, and at any given time, a hurricane could come wipe out my entire portfolio. So we're also kind of a poorer state. So there's economic impacts that could affect my portfolio as well. We're very heavily dependent on the oil industry down here. So everything that's going on could make half the people flee from the state to go find jobs elsewhere, and then who's going to live in my property? So the idea of diversification and scale is kind of what got me interested in that. I'm certainly not forsaking what's been so good to me over the last couple of years. I'm going to, I always say I'm going to keep both lanes open. I'm going to keep buying, and I kind of do the BRRRR strategy with my small local portfolio. I started with duplexes and fourplexes, and I've got, I think, 8 duplexes and 2 fourplexes. But they're not as readily available down here as maybe they are in other areas in my market. So right now I'm kind of on this streak of burring single family houses. So like last month we bought one for 65. We put 25 into it, and then it appraised at 129. So we did an 80% cash out refinance, and then I'm renting it for $1,275. So it's cash flowing about $400 a month. And so when I got that money out, I bought another one that I'm starting on this week. We bought it for 75. We're hoping that with 40 into it, it'll be worth 185. So just building my net worth. Like I said, my initial interest was cash flow, because I was concerned. I was just like terrified of like this beautiful life that I've created with my corporate income. But what if it stops? And, how am I going to pay for my kids' private school and my mortgage and all of that? So I wanted some type of safety net. And so cash flow was my primary focus originally. But I used a lot of creative strategies, low down payments with seller financing partnerships where they put in the equity. And so that those first 26 units, they didn't really build up my net worth as much as I'd like them to. So that's kind of my focus this year is to complete my first larger apartment syndication deal. And then the secondary goal is to build up my net worth through these BRRRR strategies.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you said, you wanted to set that up as a safety net. I think that a lot of people, perhaps after what we're experiencing right now in our economy, they'll consider really thinking about this, going forward in the future, because you figure just in the past, 3 weeks alone, 3-4 weeks alone, we've had 22 million job losses basically across the nation. And I mean, people tend to get into that mindset that their job is really secure when in actuality, it really isn't, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So now you're going to make this move into the multifamily syndication. So can you walk us through that and kind of what it is, the steps you're taking to do that right now?
Sure. So initially it was, like I said, was established the thought leadership platform, which has gotten, like I said, a tremendous amount of great results for what I was looking to get out of it. I wasn't trying to be the next bigger pockets. I was just trying to, learn and establish myself as an expert in the industry, for potential investors. And I think I've done a good job at that so far. I have, at this point, I have more people willing to invest with me than I have stuff to do with their money. So I'd kind of gotten to this, okay, well, now I need to go find something to do with their money, and I need to find somebody who knows what to do with a large multifamily property, because I wouldn't feel comfortable taking a bunch of investors. Like, I use investors' money to buy and fix up these houses because I'm comfortable with it, because I've done it over and over again. But as far as going to buying a $5 million apartment complex, like, I would want an experienced operator on the table. I would want an experienced underwriter at the table. So I kind of created a partnership with this gentleman I met on Facebook out of Utah. He was with a group that was looking for a capital raiser, and I thought I could probably raise money. And he was a commercial loan broker. So he was very good at the underwriting and knowing what the banks look for and knowing what a good deal looks for. Had some broker relationships. So we just kind of teamed up, and we've started to engage other brokers on properties we're looking for. We've also partnered up with a couple different operators who would like to, go in with us and could help us raise the rest of the funds and have experience operating their own deals to kind of hold our hands through the first few of them. And we put in some offers right before all this hit, and then they weren't accepted. But we also we were about to put in an offer right when all of this hit, and our operator partner came back and he goes, "Look, I'm on pause. Like, the world's caving in right now. I don't feel comfortable making any commitments for the next 30, 45 days." So right now we're just in a holding pattern. But I mean, we've done all of our research. We've established what markets we want to go in. We've started building the broker relationships to deal source. We've got soft commits from investors. So we're on the cusp. I'm very confident we're going to end up closing on something this year. And, if this whole coronavirus thing hadn't have happened, I feel like we might have already been into our first deal.
So as far as the markets are concerned, are you just primarily looking in Louisiana area, or have you considered other places?
No, so I'm not looking in Louisiana at all. I mean, I have, like I said, my local portfolio is I think I'm 28 units now. That's all in Louisiana. That's all in my backyard, where I know what neighborhoods are decent, what neighborhoods aren't. You know what I'm saying? I can control it. As far as buying a multi-million-dollar asset, I want to look at larger key economic indicators that are going to tell us a story down the road. So we look at population growth, job growth, job diversity, vacancy rates, crime rates, and that kind of thing. And when I analyzed that data, I found Louisiana was not the best place. Specifically, South Louisiana is not the best place. So we're looking in other markets. We're looking in Huntsville. We're looking in Dallas. We're looking in Jacksonville, Lexington, Kentucky. So other markets that after analyzing 100 markets, we've determined have the best key economic indicators to set us up for long-term success.
So throughout this transition, what would you say has been kind of one of the biggest challenges that you've been faced with?
Fear. It's always fear. All of the challenges that everybody faces are always in their head, in my opinion. So that's a big step. That's a big commitment. I when I first started using other people's money to build my portfolio here, I had a lot of sleepless nights. What if it goes wrong? I don't worry so much about that anymore because I'm more experienced. But when you look at, taking other people's money to go buy a multi-million-dollar asset, that's scary. That's a hard thing to pull the trigger on. And it's almost like your fear causes you to stall because you're just not ready to jump off the cliff yet. So I think that boils down to every aspect of real estate investing. Every aspect of any type of success is our mindset, our fear. I think that's usually what's holding everybody back.
Yeah. So what were some of the things that you said that you've done to kind of get over that? And I mean, even you mentioned you had raised funds on, your single and duplex deals and things that you've worked on. So how did you get over that fear of that aspect of it?
So there's a lot of things. There's education. Education is the opposite of fear. You're really just afraid of it because you don't know what to expect. If you read enough books and you talk to enough other people who have successfully done it, and the the fear kind of dissipates or is manageable because it's not some wild startup crazy idea that nobody's ever done before. It's something that people have done thousands and thousands of times over thousands of years. And when you hear enough success stories and you just see it over and over again, and it's all about what you put into your mind. So that's a combination of what you read, what you listen to, what you watch, and who you spend your time with. So I surround myself with positive people that are making good moves. And I don't watch the news. I don't scroll Facebook, gossip feeds. I focus on, reading audiobooks, podcasts, and reading articles that are written by others, people that are successfully out there doing it. So I just, I just keep the garbage out and just constantly feed the good stuff in. So that definitely helps.
Mm-hmm. So aside from, fear being one of the biggest challenges that you were able to overcome, what would you say has been just throughout your career in real estate investing has been a notable challenge that you've been faced with? And how did you go about solving it?
So, there's always a lot of issues. So one of the issues that I ran into was time. So the way I went about solving that was I turned some of my when I first started my podcast, I was going to try and edit it myself. It took me like 6 hours for the first like 10 minutes of the first podcast. I go, okay, I'll outsource that. And now I have a guy who does all my editing for me. The property management, it was eating my lunch, just trying to do everything else and then constantly running out to problems. And so I just outsourced that. So time management, money management, one thing, there's so many good deals out there. There's always opportunity out there. And you just always like, oh, well, if I had more capital. So the way I've kind of done that is by being very public about, everything that I'm doing to just attract more investors, so that's definitely, some people will try and do it all on their own, and they don't want partnerships, and they don't want people in their business. But, I'm very public about everything I do. Everybody that knows me knows what I do, and most of them would be willing to, give me money if I had a good deal on the table. And several of them have approached me, and I have more people approaching me about that than I have good deals on the table. So I need a, and I'm hoping with this offset of property management, it'll free up more time so I can match those deals with those funds.
All right. So what would be a key piece of advice that you'd have for people that are looking at getting into the business?
So I would say it's kind of everything I just described about getting over the fear and focusing on the mindset. People don't realize that, most of our problems are in our head. Most of the setbacks are temporary. Most of the people will come around. So, a lot of people will be told by their friends and family and people that love them, that are concerned about them, oh, that's risky, or you shouldn't do that, or you should focus on your day job, something safe and secure, and just kind of pushing through that. Because they'll all come around, all the people that used to tell me that are now like, oh, I want in, so just really focusing on developing the right mindset to have the kind of grit to persevere through the rough times. There's annoying things. There's times that the tenants wake you up in the middle of the night. There's times when your appraisal doesn't come in like you thought. There's all these little, $3,000 plumbing issue that came out of nowhere. There's all these little things that if you let them affect you, you will start to deteriorate, and you'll start to kind of go, oh, it's not worth it. It's just not worth all the headaches. But if you stay with it and just, push through all of that, there's a tremendous life on the other side of it.
All right. And what would be a good piece of reading material that you would suggest people pick up?
So I've got a lot. I guess it kind of depends on where they're at in their journey. So, if somebody's interested in apartment syndication, I think your podcast more focused on just multifamily?
Yeah.
So I would strongly recommend Joe Fairless's book, the best ever apartment syndication book, I think is what it's called. So that I love that. There's a lot of other books for people that are, that I have for people that are maybe kind of dipping their toe in the shallow end with small multifamily or single family house rentals. I like Brandon Turner's book on rental property investing. I'm a big fan of Steve Burgess's books. He's got one, The Complete Guide to Real Estate Finance. And then he's got another one, The Complete Guide to Buying and Selling Apartment Complexes. So those are both excellent.
All right. So how could our listeners get in touch with you if they wanted to reach out?
Sure. They could, they could always just call me at 225-247-5562. They could look me up on Facebook. I have a Sterling Chapman Facebook. I also have a Rent Roll Radio Facebook page. They could find me on Instagram. I have both a Sterling Chapman Instagram and a Rent Roll Radio Instagram. They could email me at sterling@crestworthcapital.com. So yeah, they're any way they want.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sterling, for joining us today. It was definitely a pleasure having you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Dion. Look forward to it.